Happy Monday, everybody. All right, today I am going to cover just a little something about minerals. We're going to talk salt cravings, adrenal stress, and the hydration connection. So, do you ever crave salt or wake up puffy or get dizzy when you stand up? So, these aren't really just annoyances. They're kind of little whispers from your adrenal glands. So today I'm going to break down what your adrenals actually do, what adrenal fatigue means, and how it all ties into salt, your energy level, your blood sugar, and hydration. And we're going to talk about like what red flags to watch for, okay? So you hear, especially in functional medicine, you hear a lot about adrenal stress, adrenal fatigue, adrenal burnout, whatever. In traditional medicine, they kind of don't believe in that, but we're going to talk a little bit about what that is and how it makes you feel, basically. So your adrenal glands are two tiny little glands that sit on top of your kidneys. They're basically your stress managers. They make hormones. They make aldosterone. Aldosterone balances salt and water. So think of it like your thermostat, okay? They also manage cortisol. And cortisol regulates stress, blood sugar, and inflammation. And then they make adrenal androgens. And this is a precursor to your sex hormones. So testosterone, progesterone, and estrogen, right? Now, the thing is, they're like little tiny glands, but they're just small and mighty. When they get stressed, you literally feel it everywhere. And so I want to also just interject here that there's never a straight answer. There's never one simple thing that fixes everything. So we're going to tie this into this. This also has to do with high blood pressure, or low blood pressure, right? It has to do with blood pressure regulation and blood sugar. So I'm trying to take this kind of really complicated thing that involves so many aspects of your health. And we're going to just talk about a couple little aspects here. But I just wanted you to pay attention to the fact that while we're talking about salt and hydration and hormones, it ties into so many aspects of your health. We're talking metabolic health, hormone health, and overall gut health. So now let's talk aldosterone. Think of aldosterone as your body's salt and water thermostat, okay? When it's balanced, your sodium and water move in and out of your cells and do everything just right. When it's stressed, you end up holding water in all the wrong places. Like, you ever wake up and have those puffy eyes, the creases, that just things aren't right. Your rings, maybe in the morning you're fine, but as the day goes on, your fingers just get so swollen and you can't pull your rings off. This is your body holding on to fluid. So, and of course that always happens in the wrong places, right? Also, when you're stressed, what happens is you dump sodium a little bit too fast. So think salt cravings, dizziness, the low blood pressure. So, those cravings, most food cravings are always stem from some kind of nutritional deficit or something that your body is craving for. Your body is just asking for help. Sometimes you end up doing both, so you're swollen and craving salt. So now let's talk about adrenal stress and fatigue. It's not a disease. It's not even, as I mentioned earlier, it's not even like a real traditional medicine diagnosis. It's actually the culmination of what happens when your stress managers, your adrenal glands, have been running double shifts and not being able to take a break because they're constantly doing the work. So eventually what happens, they can't keep up. So they get stressed out or burned out. So think about it like this. If you're feeling some constant mental, emotional stress, most likely your adrenal glands are feeling it. If you're not sleeping well, your adrenal glands are going to feel it. Too much caffeine, burnout. Blood sugar swings, this comes from sugar and skipped meals. So when you have that blood sugar roller coaster, those high and low spikes, they are brought on not only from sugar intake, but they're also brought on by skipped meals. And that's because of the role cortisol plays in your blood sugar regulation. It also contributes to chronic inflammation. This can also happen when you have hidden thyroid or mineral imbalances. Remember, minerals are so important to your thyroid function. Think selenium, zinc, iodine, super important in your thyroid function. So if you feel any of these things, if you have any of these things going on, then most likely that's adrenal fatigue and your stress system is just overworked or you're not supporting it enough. So it's one of those things that I always talk about, loving your liver and supporting your liver. Well, your adrenals need supported also. Kind of calming things down because it's always taking care of the stress. So now let's talk about your adrenal glands, energy, and blood sugar. Cortisol is your main adrenal hormone, okay? It keeps your blood sugar steady between meals, which is why I have a love-hate relationship with intermittent fasting. Because if you're not listening to these signs that your body is throwing out, you can go too long of a fasting window. And this can actually do the complete opposite of what you want. It can cause cortisol surges that will just wreck your insulin and blood sugar and make you hold on to weight. We don't want that. So if your cortisol is too low, you're gonna crash. You're gonna feel shaky and you're gonna crave sugar. So we don't want that. Slow and steady, we always want that constant, nice balance. If your cortisol is too high, you're gonna feel wired. You can't sleep. And yes, you're gonna store fat, especially around your midsection. This is what happens when intermittent fasting is not done the right way for your body. It is never a one-size-fits-all. So this is why adrenal stress is going to show up in that afternoon slump, like that 2 or 3 o'clock feeling where you're just like, I need coffee and a Snickers bar or some cookies to push through the rest of the day. If you're tired in the morning, wired at night, anxiety or brain fog when sugar tanks, when your blood sugar tanks, that is a key indicator. All of these things are cortisol out of whack. Now, let's talk a little bit about the hydration connection, because you hear so much all the time about, drink half your weight in body, drink half your body weight in ounces of water and you're good. That's not necessarily the be all end all, right? So yes, it's about drinking water, but it's also about water and minerals, because as I mentioned earlier, minerals are so important, especially sodium potassium connection. So important in where your minerals show up, either in your cells or out of your cells. We want the minerals inside of your cells, not sitting around on the outside. So if you chug plain water without electrolytes, you can dilute your sodium and make the adrenal stress worse. So some signs your hydration is off: swelling, salt cravings, headaches. Headaches are very often the first indicator of being poorly hydrated, brain fog, and then those energy crashes. So in the Optimal You group, tomorrow we are kicking off a hydration challenge. And although it's a little cooler today, it has been in the mid 90s and a ton of humidity here lately. So kind of a good time for a hydration challenge, right? So we want to talk a little bit more about how to hydrate in a way that supports your adrenals. So something as simple as a hydration packet. And again, this is a little caveat. So many electrolyte replacements are full of crap. We want to avoid that chemical soup that's just going to throw our balance of our gut off. So look for, there's an element, that's a good one. The line I use, Nutridyne, has a beautifully clean hydration blend that has nothing artificial in it. I can share that link in the group. I will be sharing that link in the group with when we start the challenge. And I like to give everybody a discount. So we want to make sure that we are pushing the minerals into the cell. That helps keep everything stable. And that is what is going to get you hydrated on a cellular level. So a little recap here. Symptoms of adrenal fatigue, adrenal burnout, salt or sugar cravings because you've got that cortisol connection, puffy eyes, swelling, your rings aren't coming off, you might have a little bit of a hydration issue or a mineral imbalance, right? Dizziness when standing, that afternoon crash, and then feeling wired and tired in the morning. So when my first go-to is my root cause panel. That is because when I look at labs, I don't look at lab values like I used to in traditional medicine. When you pull up those labs and look at those values and say, oh, it's normal, it's normal, it's normal. Remember, those normal values are an average of people well and not well, not optimally healthy, right? And it is what's normal before you get a disease. I look at optimal values. I laugh. Lately, I've been saying I look at the Goldilocks lab values because I want them perfect. I want a little tiny, what I consider normal window. I look at the optimal lab value because I want to see the disease coming 10 years before it's a problem. And when you're holding those labs in your hand and you think you know what's normal and what's not normal, you're looking at what's normal before you get a disease. You're not looking at those super low Goldilocks values and connecting all the dots. Key things that I look for that I never saw when I was looking at labs in traditional medicine are there are 4 different ways that your insulin, blood sugar, A1C, how they connect. And that tells me so much. It tells me if you're not losing weight because your cortisol is a problem, or if it's because you're insulin resistant. The 5 white blood cells that make up all of your total white blood cells, that is in the differential part of your CBC and differential. Those 5 white blood cells can tell me if your gut's inflamed, if you've got food sensitivities going on, if you have an overgrowth of a virus, of bacteria, of possible parasites. And these are 5 white blood cells that are never talked about in traditional medicine, where they are looking at your normal white blood cell count. The shift in these 5 white blood cells, even when your total white blood cells are normal and don't indicate any problem, those 5 white blood cells are usually off and tells me so much. So I go back to saying lab values are only as insightful as the person interpreting them for you. So I connect the dots. There's so much I can see in your so-called normal labs. That is always the starting point of where we go next and where you should be looking at things. So if you have any questions, put them in the comments. Have you ever heard about adrenal burnout before? Let me know. If you're interested in the root cause panel, let me know. Join the Optimal You group. We will be doing the hydration challenge starting tomorrow. Have a great day, everybody.